Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Gone Girl, starring Ben Affleck, Rosamund Pike, Neil Patrick Harris, Tyler Perry, and Carrie Coon, directed by David Fincher. Now, before I get into this movie, I have seen this in theaters, and I remember it being a little too long, but let's see how this goes. And I remember really enjoying it, as this is a book by Gillian Flynn, which personally I've never read, but I hear it's really good compared to this movie. So let's get into it, shall we? Nick Dunn, played by Ben Affleck, talks about when he thinks of his wife Amy, played by Rosamund Pike, he thinks of her head of for what reason? Because he wants to bash it to get information in her head, which is a serious narration. And then we move on to July 5th. Nick goes to a bar where he owns with his sister Margot, played by Carrie Coon, as their anniversary. Not, and by anniversary, I'm talking about Nick and Amy's. And we get a narration by Amy in a flashback of when she and Nick first met at a party and takes her out there on their first date. And the cinematography is very good, as I like the characters in this movie, as this movie's premise is Amy going missing and Nick trying to find her for this entire 2.5 hour movie. While at the bar, Nick plays a children's game called Life, and he gets a call at the bar by one of his neighbors, Walt, and we see their cat is outside and comes home to his house being broken in, as Detective Rhonda Boney and Officer James Giplin come to the house to see what happened inside the house, and the detective learns Amy is an amazing Amy, which is a series of books she wrote, as we get a flashback of how Nick proposed to Amy as they're at a party, and Nick asks while at a table at the party. And I like the opening 15 minutes, and the characters are worth the attention, as we want to know what happened to Amy after July 5th, I'll say. And these beginning scenes is very gripping, and David Fincher does a great job at keeping us in suspense, as the mystery in this beginning scenes work tremendously. Nick learns his father got arrested for breaking into a building while sitting 20 feet away from the cops and has no signal in the police station, and brings him back home while being rather aggressive, which is a thing that never comes back up again. The score is pretty good, while in the flashbacks they have a joke about their sex, as until the events of this movie they're a cute couple, and I agreed until the actual story begins. On July 6th, Nick wakes Pop with pills on his forehead while staying at with Margot, and Nick is reunited with Amy's parents as they have a press conference to help find Amy. And I like the beginning sequence, as it feels very intense with the spectacular script, and the detective finds their first clue, which is their anniversary scavenger hunt, as she with Nick find a lady's pair of underwear, and he goes to his father's house for more clues. And this is the mystery I want to solve until we go back and forth with Amy, which I'll get there later. We get flashbacks of Nick and Amy at their first house before they live in the town they currently live at, as they're both selfish. For example, Nick is playing video games while Amy is yelling at him, and the dialogue works great in this movie. July 7th comes and they have a search party, as Nick sees Amy's ex-boyfriend, whom she broke up with sophomore year in high school because he was obsessed, named Desi Collins, played by Neil Patrick Harris, who I like as an actor, but I don't see much of him anymore these days. But he signs the Find Amy paper, and Nick gets a picture with a lady who offers chicken casserole, as he doesn't like the photo, and the search party starts searching for Amy, and we get a flashback of when they first move into the house, and we see in the current days Nick is having an affair with an Andy Fitzgerald, and we get another flashback of Nick using Amy with sex as she becomes a person she doesn't necessarily like as he throws her to the ground, and she becomes afraid of her own husband, which is an interesting story to see what becomes of this movie, as this was a book by Gillian Flynn. As a flashback occurs on Valentine's Day, she decides to buy a gun, which, ooh, that sounds... I'm a little scared at this point, as she'll feel safer, and I thought, uh-oh, their marriage is not working, is it? On July 8th, Andy leaves the house, and Nick is caught by Margot cheating on his wife as they watch the TV and see Ellen Abbott, played by Missy Pyle, thinking Nick is evil, and interviews Tanner Bolt, played by Tyler Perry, as this is his only good performance in his career, in my opinion anyways, and the detective searches for what's happening in the missing Amy case, and the movie is very well shot and well made with tremendous acting. Nighttime comes as Nick asks for more help and sees Andy seeing him and calls him an asshole without saying it out loud, and the lady who's best friends with Amy what did he do to his pregnant wife, which I didn't understand now how before this movie started, as they hang out together, and the detective proves it by showing Nick pictures and tells Nick he spent a lot of money on things he didn't buy, and he's stressed enough as it is, as he doesn't want to talk to the detective without a lawyer. And I thought, he's fucked by the end of the day, and this movie works tremendously. Margot comes over and wants to know everything about their relationship, while Nick is super stressed, and he finds another clue in a drawer as he reads it and solves a riddle, and he goes to the little wood house that they have in the dad's backyard, as he sees a bunch of expensive electronic stuff. As we learn Amy isn't dead or missing, she runs away from Nick on July 5th, hiding where she doesn't want to be found, as she sets up the mess of the house. Her death and people leading to believe she's pregnant, as she pulls off the lying way very well, and the actress pulls that shit off very fucking well, as it was clever, and sets up Nick as the suspect. And Rosamund Pike, plays these scenes of menace and manipulation the best way, as the material suits her very well, as the actress seems like a nice person, but plays off being a bitch very well. Nick and Margot find out Amy is a psychopath and pulls off some psycho shit very well. July 6th, on Amy's part, as she goes to the pool and meets Greta, who's a nosy neighbor, and the next day she comes and searches Ellen Abbott in the story to find Amy, and the next day comes and Greta goes to the pool and talks with her. And these scenes can be cut out of this movie, as it takes a little too long, as this is 2.5 hours that could have been trimmed, and these scenes could have been trimmed down a bit. Nick goes to New York to get Tanner's help, as he believes it's the craziest story ever, which is why he gets the right man for the job. Nick visits Amy's ex-boyfriend, as they explain how much of a fucking psycho she is, and believe me, she's a fucking psycho. Meanwhile, Amy watches Ellen Abbott on the TV, and Greta as Noelle is interviewed, but Nick and Margot see it on the TV and on the airport, and one is back at home, and Nick disguises himself in a hat and visits Desi on his doorstep. Oh boy. As he tries to talk with him, but he refuses, and the character does come off as dickish. And Nick, as he comes back home and his bar is more popular than ever thanks to the series of unfortunate events, and the scenes with Greta could have been cut out of this movie, in my opinion. On July 10th, Tanner comes to Margot's house, as she and Nick tells him the situation as they solve the case, and suggests going on Ellen Abbott. And I like the cinematography of the town in Missouri, which is where the movie is located, at, and we get more scenes with Amy with Greta and her boyfriend that could have been seriously been cut out. Tanner arrives at the Dunn house, and they schedule an episode of Ellen Abbott, which Nick and Margot are led to believe is a bad idea, while Amy gets robbed by Greta and her boyfriend, and she leaves the place, and thank God we're done with these scenes, because they were making the movie drag a bit to the 2.5-hour length. Tanner and Nick practice the interview as Tanner throws some candy at him, while Amy calls and meets Desi at a casino and tells Desi a lie about what happened at home, and Andy exposes Nick as a cheater on live television. Before he goes on the TV, Nick goes on with Ellen Abbott, or someone else I'll say, that's part of that show, as they celebrate after a successful interview, which we'll see on the TV in a couple of minutes, while Amy is at Desi's lake house. But beforehand, she arrives there, and he seems like a much worse host than Nick, as he controls when they watch the TV versus using her for sex. July 13th comes as Amy sniffs around, and Desi arrives back at home and getting her a makeover, which feels very abusive, I must say. Nick comes to Margot's house to watch the Ellen Abbott show with him on the TV, and Amy and Desi watch as well, as the whole thing world watches as well, as the interview was successful, and he confesses he's not a good person nor husband, and wants to tell Amy how much he loves and cares for her, and promises to be there for her every single day, which is a sweet message. And the detective searches around Margot's place with the warrant and arrests Margot, and Desi forces himself on Amy. Nick confesses the truth about what was going on their anniversary, and before then, and they arrest Nick for the murder of Amy, and we move on to July 26th, and Amy bites Desi on the mouth, and plans on finding a way to escape and to expose Desi on camera as Nick gets out of prison. And this is a nice way to lead to the climax of the movie, in my opinion. August comes. Desi comes home to Amy, and they have sexual intercourse, which is rather a rough scene. And the score in that scene is rough when Amy cuts Desi's throat, and this is the goriest death in the movie we're ever going to get in this movie, which sounds fucking brutal. And we witness her being a psycho killer as she drives home, and on August 4th, Amy comes home to Nick with blood everywhere, and they take her to the hospital, and she explains everything and lies about it as a setup, which all of this was a fucking miracle that she made it out alive to begin with. While being interviewed by the cops, Amy smiles like she was going to do something to Nick, as it looked very fucking menacing, and it's amazing she did all that and has everybody in the movie fooled. Nick is thinking about leaving Amy as he's not comfortable living with her anymore, and she slit a man's throat, and he can't sleep with her after the turn of events, as he's frightened to death as Nick sleeps in a different room with the cat. August 5th comes as Nick takes out the trash, and they go to a press conference, and Nick, Margot, Tanner, and the detective meet up for a cup of coffee, as we see the end of Tanner, and September 9th night is here, as he gets him upstairs to sleep, and September 23rd comes in, and Ellen Abbott comes to the house for an interview, and Amy gives Nick a pregnant test, as he still thinks about leaving Amy, as she says she'll kill for him, as she's fucking delusional. And they get interviewed by Ellen, and they announce the pregnancy, and Margot is sad, and Nick will get killed if he stays with Amy. And the climax is amazing on how she got back without getting killed, and she'll find a way to kill Nick. and it's a very suspenseful ending. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.4 out of 10. I personally never read the book, but someday I might, as the movie is well made and writing is tremendous. David Fincher does a damn good job at believing who's in the right and who's in the wrong in the movie, and the performances are very well done as this is well casted. The movie could have used some editing, sure, but the cinematography is why I'm also giving the movie the rating I'm giving it, as the movie looks good, as it's well acted, and very well made, as at some point I might read the book and might want to see more details of how the story goes. So I would like to thank you guys for joining me for the David Fincher series, and until he directs another movie, I did not kill my wife.